Last night, Twitter suspended the accounts of roughly a half dozen prominent journalists from the platform, continuing Elon Musk's rapid pace of change at the company. Now, the suspensions appear to be due to their tweeting images from accounts that track the location of Musk's private plane. Musk said that Twitter's rules on the sharing of someone else's personal information, often referred to as doxing, apply to journalists as well as everyone else. As we now know, the previous regime routinely silenced conservative voices, but now that it's happening to the left, we see a panicked response from legacy media. How should conservatives who believe in the First Amendment react to all of it? Joining me now to discuss it is Scott Shepard, director of the Free Enterprise Project, the National Center for Public Policy Research. Scott, welcome back to Washington Watch.
Thanks so much. Good to be on with you again, Joseph.
It's good to see you again. Now, I tried to describe what was happening here, this uproar about the fact that these journalists have been suspended by Twitter, the horror of it all. Is this actually connected to doxing, or is there anything more to the story?
Well, it appears to be a tragedy of doxing and a tragedy of rules being applied to left-wing journalists in the same way that they're applied to everybody else. And, CNN is absolutely having a predictable meltdown. We've heard a lot about how David Zaslav and Chris Licht over there, or Light, however you pronounce his name, are changing CNN for the better, but they just still couldn't wrap their minds around the fact that there are rules against doxing, which is to say literally endangering people by saying how to reach them to hurt them. And that's being applied to CNN's journalists who've been doing it for years, while claiming that unsafety is created merely by disagreeing with opinions. So if you disagree with a journalist, that's unsafety for the journalist. But if the journalist doxes somebody, says, here's where this person lives, here's how to attack them, that somehow wasn't unsafe or dangerous. And finally, Elon Musk is saying, no, we're going to apply the rules to everybody. That's how this works. And the left-wing journalists have just absolutely melted down.
To provide a bit more context for those who may not be following this story and even be that familiar with what doxing is, what was happening allegedly, and I think there's good proof of this, is this was the doxing of Elon Musk himself. And Elon Musk, of course, is a very controversial figure at this point, and this story helps illustrate that. Purchased Twitter, he is now persona non grata for many on the left. Lots of people really dislike him, and a handful of people had gone to tracking his every movement and identifying publicly on the internet where he was, where his children was, where his family was on a moment-by-moment basis. That's what doxing is, and doing that to somebody who is a highly controversial figure and has lots of people who hate him. And so that's the context of this. And Elon Musk happened to be the target of it, but he also said, if you're going to do that on Twitter, now you can't do that, and we're going to stop you from doing that. Now, of course, the past regime also had policies against doxing, and I think we can objectively understand why that is. Any of us who would be the potential targets of that could be bothered by that. But do these journalists, do they deny that they were doxing, or are they just concerned now that the rules are being applied against them rather than on their behalf?
No, that's exactly right. They haven't flat out said, no, we haven't been doxing. What they've done is they've characterized and covered this by the same lies that they always use. They said, well, it's objecting to Musk and his control over Twitter that's caused them to be suspended. That's absolutely false. It's because they were providing information, providing addresses, providing ways that people could harass Musk and others with genuine actual unsafety. And in fact, somebody did attack a car that one of Musk's kids were in. So it was legitimately an attack. And the attack's being spread today in response to the rules applying to everybody. And Tifo, which the fellow who one way or another occupies the White House sometimes these days, insists is just a theory. Well, that theory is rallying to attack Tesla dealerships in the Portland area, and really has a lot of muscle and a lot of firepower for something that we're told is just a stray thought.
Now, the response to this is in some ways just funny, because CNN has really taken this on as a crusade. They actually issued a statement in response to this. They're demanding answers from Twitter. And I'm going to play clip 7 here. Here's what CNN has said about these incidences and what they might do about it. Let's go ahead and play clip 7.
I want to read you the full statement,
Please.
Allison. It says, the impulsive and unjustified suspension of a number of reporters, including CNN's Donny O'Sullivan, is concerning but not surprising. And it goes on to say Twitter's increasing instability and volatility should be of incredible concern for everyone who uses Twitter. And then it goes on to say, we've asked Twitter for an explanation and we will reevaluate our relationship based on that response.
So, Scott Shepard, CNN is going to reevaluate their relationship with Twitter. I mean, this feels a bit like Yahoo threatening to reevaluate their relationship with Google. Does Twitter actually need CNN?
No, nobody needs CNN, as you can tell by its viewing figures, which are within a rounding error of absolutely nobody on earth watching CNN. But I'll tell you what, for a company to say that strange and false and disinformational behavior is occurring at a different company, for CNN to say that, I mean, think about, the Russian dossier was true, but Hunter Biden's laptop was Russian disinformation. I mean, that's the tip of that iceberg, but those people lie constantly. That's the place where the poor kid from Kentucky, Nick Sandman, was attacked as a smarmy racist when all he was doing was trying to be polite to somebody who was shouting in his face. CNN is a trash heap. It should be swept into the ash heap of history. And you're exactly right. To pull back a bumper sticker from when I was a kid, Twitter needs CNN like a fish needs a bicycle.
That seems like it might be true. And I think a lot of the people who are complaining might soon discover they don't have nearly the leverage that they think they have with Twitter. And I don't know that Twitter, frankly, cares if they take off. But there is a principle here that I want to discuss with you, Scott, because we do care about the First Amendment. And we remember it's very recent history that a different regime at Twitter was kicking people off of the platform, and people on the right were decrying censorship and being horrified by the threats to free speech that represented. We now have different people being kicked off the platform. Should we be equally concerned that this is censorship, that the First Amendment is being threatened? Should we call Congress to get these CNN journalists back on Twitter?
Well, I mean, the old rule in this country, all the way back to Justice Holmes a century ago, was you can't shout fire in a crowded theater. You can't endanger people's lives with free speech. And what's important for Twitter, and we'll know that Elon Musk is doing right, if whatever rules he establishes, he applies indiscriminately without regard to the content or the political party position of the supplier of the content. If no doxing rules apply to everyone equally, that'll be terrific. If you can't organize riots online, then it applies to Antifa as well as to, I don't know, whoever on the right is imaginarily supposed to be rioting. Maybe those parents going to PTA meetings. As long as it's applied equally and honestly, I think it's going to be a terrific win, not only for the country but for the whole world.
And that is the question, will these be applied? Because we know that a lot of people on the right were being kicked off of Twitter, for example, saying that men cannot become women. That was the threat of violence that was getting you banned from the platform. I think most people would say that that belief about biology and about science is different than publishing the location devices of people who have lots of, the location of people who have lots of enemies. But we do hope for consistency, because that's one thing that freedom of speech definitely needs. Whether Elon Musk will pull that off remains to be seen, but we can be hopeful. Scott Shepard, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Joseph. Anytime.